Hey slingers, welcome back to another Wordslinger Wednesday. We're going to jump right into a whole bunch of ideas that I've been kicking around about the basics of what you need to get started in this business. So stick around, we'll talk about that next.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger. Thank you for tuning into another Wordslinger Wednesday. I guess that's what we're going to call this. It's a Wednesday episode of the Wordslinger podcast. And if you are tuning in expecting to hear a guest interview, I am very sorry, but that's not what we do here. At least not on Wednesdays. Not on this particular style of episode. If you've been tuning in for the past couple of weeks, you've probably discovered that I've been splitting up the episodes between interviews and this little afterword, word of wisdom, whatever you want to call it. So I've kind of been experimenting with the format a little, is what we're saying here. So right now, I'm experimenting even further. Actually, I'm tinkering with this is going to be an audio only podcast today. So if you have become accustomed to being able to find this on YouTube, actually you're probably not listening at all right now. Because I'm not gonna do a video, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I got incredibly frustrated today as I recorded this episode once already, and then everything fell apart, and I was unable to a series of freakish instances. Hi, Siri. That's hilarious. A series of really things like that just happened. Technical glitches, goofy things that happened, caused it to not work. And there just comes a point where I start to question what the value. I'm not seeing a lot of subscriptions on YouTube. It's just not this format doesn't work on YouTube, is what I've determined. Or maybe it does, and I'm not doing it right. There could be all kinds of things, but I've decided to sort of fall back on my strength. I may very well not do any video episodes going forward. The frank truth is I was just recording myself doing this show this way anyway. So there you have it. But that is not what today's Wordslinger Wednesday or Wednesday word is about. Tell you what, vote. Tell me what you think I should call this. This type of episode. I'm leaning towards a couple of things, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. Pop on over to wordslingerpodcast.com, hit the contact button, or leave this in the show notes of this episode, and just tell me what you think I should call the show. I've had a couple of people chime in. I think I got a general direction. So anyway, so this week, this Wednesday, I wanted to talk to you about something that's it's come up a couple of times. I had a whole conversation with Roland Denzel a few days ago. That was sort of on. It kind of went to this place, but and I'm sorry I keep clearing my throat in here. I'll try to hit the mute button like this. That way you don't hear me cough in your ear. Anyway, I had this conversation, and it's something I've been thinking about for a while. I've been trying to kind of pull together a blog post on this topic. It's actually a little tougher than you might think to discuss this topic, because I don't want to oversimplify it and I don't want to overcomplicate it. So I'm trying to find the middle ground here. But the idea is, what is the absolute minimum you need to have a author career? Now, what I've decided for this episode, at least, is to focus just on the writing portion of this. So the minimum you would need to actually write and publish your book. There is no component for marketing in this. There's no advice on anything beyond sort of the mechanics of actually writing. And so that's going to simplify this just a little. And then in a future episode, particularly if you're interested in this, I'll expand on this topic. But so to tell you, to kind of get you into the right headspace here, the conversation I had with Roland involved this idea of authors sort of constantly being on the lookout for an all-in-one solution for everything that they need. So they want something that helps them, map out the book, plot the book, build the characters, build the settings, write the scenes, tag the scenes, organize everything into chapters, do all the editing, find all the grammar and other issues, and then reorganize the book, spit it out as an ebook in whatever format they want, and or publish that ebook to all the various storefronts. And the reality is that that's becoming much closer to a reality. It's becoming more real that something like that could exist. Specifically, we were talking about an app that is making the rounds, but all of that stuff could apply to Scrivener, which is my writing tool of choice. But what kind of came out of this was some thinking about, it isn't necessarily the best plan in the world to have an all-in-one tool. I mean, it can be. It depends on the tool. But let's just talk about Scrivener for a second. I love Scrivener. Scrivener was the sort of breakover tool for me because, for one, I had spent most of my career writing copy for clients and employers, and for myself in Microsoft Word. So Word is the tool of choice for no matter what industry you're in. If you're going to create written words on a page, Microsoft Word is going to come into play at some point in that process. You can't work in any professional industry on this planet without Word factoring in somewhere. So Word was my first choice when it came to writing my books. Now I had written books. I had written lots of things in tools outside of Word, especially in the years before Word existed. And yeah, I am that old. But Word became the tool of choice, and so that's what I fell back on. So for me, Scrivener represented a way to write in a new, fun environment, and if you'll permit that, that wasn't Word. So what was happening for me was I was spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day writing copy in Microsoft Word, and then stopping by a coffee shop on my way home from an office or something and putting another couple of hours in Microsoft Word. And it just felt like more work. It took the soul out of me. I didn't feel creative anymore. I felt, drained of energy. I felt like here I am slugging away 2 more hours out of my day, 4 more hours out of my day spent in this wretched software, And I actually like Word quite a bit. It's the most powerful writing software to my knowledge. I mean, I've used practically everything, and the Word is really robust, sometimes too much so. But Scrivener represented a whole new way of thinking about my writing. It was nonlinear. It allowed me to write in scenes and within chapters, just like files within a folder, reorganize all that stuff if I needed to. This scene would work better in chapter 3 than it does in chapter 10. This chapter would make a better chapter 7 than a chapter 3. So I'm able to reorganize on the fly if I want, or after the book is done, I can retool it and restructure it, and that's great. I also liked the corkboard. That was probably the first thing that attracted me to Scrivener, was the stupid corkboard, which I don't even use now. But I had come in after an era of doing a whole lot of screenwriting for documentary mostly, and to keep all the stuff organized, I used an actual corkboard with 3x5 note cards. So being able to do that virtually was comfortable. So that was one of the first things that attracted me to Scrivener. Also, it has a story in that it was created by an author. That's always a hook for me. I'm going to get into that in a future episode. But anyway, so Scrivener was a tool that was comfortable and fun for me to use. Now, here's the deal. Scrivener, for the longest time, was only available, I believe it was only available on Mac. But then it became available on PC, but it wasn't as good for a long time. I think now they've solved a lot of these problems. And then eventually it wasn't available on iOS where I really wanted it. So there were times where even Scrivener was kind of frustrating to me, and I branched out and tried other things. Tried Ulysses, which I really did like, and then they went to a paid model, and I didn't like that, among other things. There was also a couple other factors in me switching away from Ulysses. But there's been a lot of those little apps. So I've been thinking about this for a while now. What is the... ultimately, what does it come down to when you're looking at the what it takes to do this work? Does it take a Scrivener? Does it take a Microsoft Word? These are software platforms that are actually quite expensive. So you don't necessarily want to drop a bunch of cash to get into this when you don't know if you're going to succeed. And, granted, most people can afford something. You can afford one of these apps. Scrivener is like $40. So, I say that so cavalier, but not everybody has $40 to throw at something like this. So, bare minimum, though, let's just face facts. There is that old school method of sitting down with a pad and pencil and scribbling out your book in longhand. I still know authors who do this. I know plenty of authors who do it. It's sort of almost shocking to me that there are that many people who write their books longhand. My hand cramps up just thinking about it. But there is some appeal in that for me. I've written longhand, short stories, articles, all kinds of things. I carry around a Moleskine notebook pretty frequently. I've got lots and lots of journals all around me. So there's been plenty of writing that way in my life. And that is one way to go. And in fact, I have a story. A couple of years ago, I was just sort of thinking, pondering the nature of being a writer and the accessibility of it. And I decided I would do a little experiment. I like to keep my eyes open. I like to keep my eyes open for resources. I'm a very resource-oriented guy, okay? So I thought, well, I'm a resource-oriented guy. I'm always looking for, where was the last time I saw a coat hanger or a screwdriver or something in case I've locked myself out of a car or, I need to fix something or whatever. And I keep that stuff in my head, sort of a little buffer of that stuff. So I thought, I'm going to start looking for the materials I would need to have a writing career. I just spent a couple of days doing this. I'm just going to, wherever I go, I'm going to look around and say, okay, I could use that. I do this as a matter of course anyway. I'm always kind of keeping my eyes open in case there's in case I need that rock or that brick or that, whatever. And this is how I find a lot of money, by the way. So keeping my eyes open for things that would help me write. I took one of my regular morning walks. I'm heading for a donut shop, actually, where I tend to sit and do a little bit of reading and writing. Not anymore. I don't live anywhere near this place. And oddly enough, I don't think I ever bought a donut from this place. But while walking through another parking lot to get there, I spotted someone had dropped a ballpoint pen. That's a writing implement. I will pick that up. And I went ahead and picked that up. And then I get to the donut shop and I order my coffee and they give me a receipt. And for some reason, they gave me this super long receipt. Not a lot on it. And it was the backside of it was entirely blank. So I thought, well, there's some paper. I have a pen. I'm going to write something. So I spent a few minutes writing out basically something that became the front end of a blog post. And And, I had a good time with this. I mean, this is a kind of fun exercise, right? And I thought, well, okay, so that's handwritten. Now, how would I get that to a digital world? Now, I had my phone with me. So, of course, I could sit there and type it in, bit by bit on my phone. I thought, that's kind of cheating. I brought that with me. If I didn't have that with me, how would I do this? Now, the answer there is it wasn't an immediate thing. With my phone, I could immediately publish. I can instantly publish. And I got another story about that coming up. But without the phone, I had to think of some other way. If I were just completely broke, and the only means I had was this pen I found on the ground and any scrap of paper I could pick up, how would I go about turning that into a writing business? And the answer for me on this particular trip was once the sun was up, once the world was active and moving, I walked to the local library. Was very close to where I was. Once I was in the library, they had several computers that I could sit at for free. And once you're sitting at a computer, you get all kinds of options. Now, I wanted to publish this, right? So I used Google Docs, which is a free Microsoft Office level tool, and I typed up what I'd written, and then I kind of finished it, and then I did the copy and paste, and I could have easily used anything else. Since I was blogging this, I could have just written it in the blog platform. There are a million free blog platforms. So that meant I went from finding a pen on the ground and using a receipt to sitting down in front of a computer and publishing what I'd written. And it didn't cost me anything more than the cup of coffee I'd paid for. And I could easily have skipped that and just written this on any scrap of paper. And I didn't even need the pen or the paper, really. I could have just gone to the library and sat down and started writing. So now that's a blog post, but the same thing applies. Google Docs, for example, will let you spit out that your work as a Word document or an RTF file. Guess who uses that? You can actually upload that to Draft to Digital, convert your manuscript that you've created into an EPUB and a Mobi file, distribute it worldwide right from there, and start making some money on this thing that you wrote while using a pen you found in the parking lot. Or skip the pen and just go straight in and write your book in Google Docs. Fast forward, now I went to a conference in Orlando. You've heard this story before if you've listened to the show for a while. But I was in a conference in Orlando and I had some time between conferences. I had multiple conferences going on. Had a couple of days and decided I would go do Disney World. Actually, I basically had one day. And decided I'm going to go to Disney World today. So I went to Disney World, had a great time, didn't want to carry a bunch of crap with me, so I had my phone and that was it. So I am standing in line for the Flight of Passage ride, which is, if you go to Animal Kingdom, they have a whole Avatar world for some reason. Disney owns Avatar now. For some reason, despite this movie being, forever old and only one movie and wasn't even all that great, they have an entire section of a park in Disney World dedicated to it. And I have to admit, the park itself is much cooler than the movie. So I'm waiting for this ride. It's a 3-hour wait. So I took my phone out, and I had recently had a conversation with Michael Laron. Now, you can benefit from that conversation because I did an interview with him on this topic later. And he told me, and you can find that. Go to wordslingerpodcast.com, type Michael Laron, Laronn. He told me that he'd started writing all of his books using his iPhone and typing using his thumbs on the screen. And that blew my freaking mind. So I wanted to play with this. So I started doing a lot of stuff on my phone. I started writing blog posts. I started writing copy, marketing copy for Draft to Digital. And I decided, well, what if I applied this to fiction? So I started, while waiting in this line, I wrote a little short story using nothing but the iPhone and my thumbs, right? Went much faster than you would think. It actually went very well. But from that phone, I was able to, I wrote it in Scrivener. I was able to output that as a Word document to Dropbox. I was able to upload that Word document to Draft to Digital. And from Draft to Digital, I could convert it to all the ebook formats. And I went on Canva and used their little free ebook cover thing and made a cover for it, complete with an original image and everything. And then wrote the description, and I wrote all the metadata stuff, and chose a title and got it all pulled together. And I got all the way to the point where I could have pushed publish and stopped there because I wanted to go back and edit, maybe expand, do some other things with this story. So the point there was, in that 3 hour window of standing in line, because I was by myself, I didn't have anybody to talk to. Everybody had their loved ones and family with them. Everybody's laughing and having a good time. I'm feeling a little lonely. So I write a short story. It made me feel much better. and by the time it was all done, I could have pressed publish on that and put it out into the world where it could have started making me some money. And so I would have turned that waiting time into writing time. All that took was a smartphone. So I love that idea because years ago I used to write using a Palm Pilot. Now, if you're not old enough to remember these, personal digital assistants, PDAs, they were the precursor of the iPhone. Most of you, I think, probably lived through that era. But I had a Palm 5, which was a fairly fancy Palm Pilot, and I had a little keyboard for it. I even at one point had a little digital laser-generated keyboard, laser-projected keyboard. It would project the keys onto a tabletop surface, and I could type that way. That didn't work all that great, so I didn't use it much. But I did have a little thing that the PDA snapped into, the Palm Pilot snapped into, that had a keyboard. It was a great keyboard. I really wished I could get one like it for my iPhone, because it all folded up. It was perfect. But I love the idea of a folding keyboard. I've got like a dozen of them, and I still can't find one that I really love. But I was able to, wherever I was, I had laptops, but they weren't very battery efficient, and this was small and portable. I could carry it in my pocket, so wherever I was, I could stop and do some writing. And I wrote lots of articles, blog, and this was pre-blog. No one knew what a blog was, but I was basically writing a blog, a sort of web journal, and I did a lot of short stories, things like that. And it was all mobile. Well, that thing is just like this little monochromatic screen. It doesn't even have internet access. It was just an organizer, basically. But it gave me this tool that shaped a lot of how I do my work now. But the idea is to look around. The bare minimum that you need for this is a pad and pencil. You need to be able to get this stuff online these days. But even that is kind of, it's kind of iffy. Like, you don't necessarily have to publish online. There are ways to go about this where you never touch the internet at all. But I don't know. I argue the efficiency of that. But the real point here is you can create a career from almost literally nothing. It just takes, looking around and figuring out, how do I get my words on the page. Now, we've talked about writing as in sitting down with a pad and pencil or sitting down with a keyboard, but it's equally as effective to go ahead and just dictate what you're writing. I read Kevin J. Anderson's book. I think it was like The Millionaire Writer or something. Hold on just a second. I'm taking a little sip of water. Hold on. That is lubricating. He wrote, Kevin J. Anderson, he was talking about one of his favorite things to do, which is to go hiking on the the trails near his home in Colorado. And while he's doing that, he carries a little voice recorder with him and he dictates his books as he goes. Now that's fantastic. I've never really gotten into that, but I could see how it would work. And I was talking to actually Roland Denzel about that very idea. He likes to use Dragon, and he has a PC. And I never got into the whole Dragon thing. I kind of played with it when they first introduced it years ago, and I've played with it a few times since. I just don't feel all that comfortable, especially sitting in front of my computer dictating. It just doesn't work as well for me. It's not the same vibe for me. However, I could see how doing it on the go, walking and talking, I think that might work well for me. Now, to do that, you could use a voice recorder, or you could use your mobile phone. Now, if you're using a text to or a speech to text software, things can get a little tricky. But there are ways to make that work. But I like. I don't use this yet for narrating a book, but I've used a service called Temi, which is spelled TEMI.com. It is a service that it uses the same sort of software basically that will translate your words into text automatically, and it costs you about $6 an hour, about 10 cents a minute actually. So I've played around with it a little. I was going to use it for transcriptions for the show. It's not perfect, especially when you got more than one voice recorded. So you will have to do some editing. But if you have a Mac and therefore can't get the Dragon software, or if you don't like dealing with that sort of thing, this is another option. So you don't even have to be able to type or write, physically write to write a book. You can just narrate it. Now, one of the advantages of that is if you do it right, you could even have your audiobook sort of pre-recorded. I don't see how you could do that really fresh without editing, but stranger things have happened. But it does get you kind of used to the idea of reading your work out loud. And if you're going to do that, you very well could record your own audiobooks. You could get really good at this stuff. So the point there is there are no real limitations here. And if there are limitations, they're usually extenuating circumstances, and you can find a way to work around those. What it takes is looking around, seeing what resources you have, and putting those resources to work. I've had people tell me I could never write on my cell phone, even with a keyboard. I love my Bluetooth keyboard with my phone. I love to write that way because it's hyper portable. I can be anywhere. But I've had people tell me I could never write on the phone. The screen's too small. I'm blown away by that very statement. Given that I used to have a word processor that had a little strip of monochromatic LCD screen, and I basically could see about half a sentence at a time. And I wrote entire books on that word processor. So to tell me that the phone screen is too small, I think it's just a matter of adjusting. The point is there is a way. And you might have to compromise a little on what you think it means to be a writer, but you can get this done. So the bare minimum to write is to find a tool that works for you. And that means it works for you physically, it works for you in terms of your budget, works for you in terms of productivity, but it's out there. You do not have to spend a lot of money on software of any kind, apps of any kind, equipment of any kind. There are some people who buy a Mac so that they can use Scrivener and Vellum. Scrivener is available on PCs, like I said, but Vellum isn't. I applaud you. If you've got the budget to do that, do it. I do, so I do. But maybe you don't. I went to the flea market this past weekend, and I saw hundreds of small laptops and large laptops that people were selling for like less than $25. Some were selling for more, but a lot of these were working laptops that people were selling for like $25. Not the latest and greatest, of course. You might have to reformat them, there will be some blemishes on them, so you can do this. I mean, my first laptop came from the flea market. I paid $20 for it. It was a monochromatic green screen Tandy laptop, clamshell laptop. This was the first laptop I owned, So the point there is there are more resources out there than you're probably aware of or that you're thinking about. And it doesn't take that much to actually do this. So, and I ran you through a whole process of getting that book onto, into distribution using Draft to Digital. I'm biased towards Draft to Digital, but there are a lot of other ways to do this too. So that's it. That's the basics. That's all it takes. And I know you can do it because I've seen a few thousand of you do it. If you are still struggling to write your first book, then I just want you to know there are no real barriers. If you are already writing and you're thinking about, maybe you feel a little inadequate. I don't have a Mac. Maybe I should do virtual Mac, pay a monthly fee so I can use Vellum. Maybe I should save up and buy a new MacBook Pro or whatever. It's fine if you do that, but it's not necessary. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So I'm at time, a little over, and so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you have questions about this or anything else, please hop on over to wordslingerpodcast.com. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you think of this and this format and everything else that's going on. Make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. I'm everywhere now. Even on YouTube, though. Heck, man, I may not do the show this way on YouTube anymore. Who knows? Let me know what you think about that too. So, anyway, I am happy we had this time to chat. God bless each and every one of you. Make sure you subscribe. Got to throw that in one last time. And I'll see you all this Friday. See you Friday with a whole new episode. Talking to GP James, so you're not going to want to miss that. So I'll see you then.
Wordslinger.